Australia, a continent that feels like a world unto itself. A land sculpted by time, where the earth bleeds red beneath the endless sky, and life thrives in the most unexpected places. From the golden dunes of the Outback that stretch beyond the horizon, to the emerald rainforests of Queensland alive with the calls of ancient species, and the shimmering turquoise waters of the Great Barrier Reef that pulse with color. This is nature at its most raw, most breathtaking, and most diverse. Every corner of Australia tells a story of survival. The eucalyptus forests that whisper in the dry winds, the coral reefs that form vast underwater cities, and the deserts where resilient species have adapted to centuries without rain. Each ecosystem represents millions of years of evolution and balance. It's no wonder that more than 9 million tourists visit every year, drawn by the promise of adventure, beauty, and wonder. But what most visitors see is only the surface, a postcard of perfection. Beneath the beauty lies a fragile truth. Australia's natural world is under immense pressure. Massive bushfires, coral bleaching, invasive species, and an intensifying climate crisis threaten to unravel ecosystems that have stood for millennia. Today, we journey beyond the scenic views and tourist trails to uncover the environmental struggles hidden beneath the surface, the untold stories of a continent fighting to protect its wild heart. This is the real Australia. Magnificent, resilient, but on the edge of fragility. Fire, both a destroyer and a creator. In Australia, it has always been part of the land's story. For thousands of years, fire shaped the landscape, renewing grasslands, opening seeds, and helping native plants regenerate. Indigenous Australians understood this balance intimately. Through cultural burning, a controlled ancient practice, they maintained harmony between humans, animals, and the bush. But, in recent decades, this natural rhythm has been thrown into chaos. What were once seasonal burns have become infernos of unimaginable scale. The summer of 2019 to 2020, now etched in memory as the Black Summer, changed everything. Over 18 million hectares of land burned. That's an area nearly the size of England. Towering walls of flame turned day into night. Entire towns vanished. Families fled through smoke-filled skies as temperatures soared above 45 degrees Celsius. The human cost was devastating. At least 33 lives lost. More than 3,000 homes reduced to ash, and tens of thousands forced to evacuate. But the toll on nature was almost incomprehensible. An estimated 3 billion animals were killed or displaced. Kangaroos, koalas, and countless species of birds and reptiles. Ancient forests that had survived for millennia were reduced to blackened skeletons. In the Blue Mountains, trees that had never burned before were consumed in hours. The very air turned toxic, spreading smoke as far as New Zealand. Scientists warn that these fires are no longer the exception. They are becoming the new normal. Rising global temperatures have intensified Australia's climate. Prolonged droughts dry the soil, high winds fan the flames, and shifting rainfall patterns make the land even more combustible. Once the fires start, the heat creates its own weather systems, fire-generated storms that hurl lightning bolts across the sky, igniting new blazes miles away. The aftermath lingers long after the flames die. Ash and debris wash into rivers, choking aquatic life. Erosion strips the soil bare, preventing vegetation from regrowing. Animals that survived the flames often die from starvation as their habitats vanish. Even the carbon released into the atmosphere fuels the very climate changes that make future fires more likely, a vicious cycle of destruction and renewal. And yet, when the smoke clears, something extraordinary happens. Green shoots emerge from the blackened earth. Birds return to sing in the charred trees. Life, however fragile, finds a way. But each year, it becomes harder for ecosystems to recover before the next fire season begins. To the average visitor walking through Australia's national parks, the landscape may seem peaceful again, the scars hidden beneath a new layer of green. But for ecologists, the warning signs are everywhere. A land pushed to its ecological limits, its resilience wearing thin. The fires remind us that Australia's beauty is not eternal. It is living, breathing, and vulnerable. And unless balance is restored, the continent's natural heritage could turn to smoke once more. Beneath the sunlit waves of northeastern Australia lies a kingdom of color and life, the Great Barrier Reef. Stretching for more than 2,300 kilometers, it is the largest living structure on Earth, so vast it can be seen from space. A labyrinth of coral gardens, seagrass meadows, and vibrant marine life. It is home to over 9,000 species, from tiny, translucent jellyfish to giant manta rays and ancient sea turtles that have navigated these waters for millions of years. To swim here is to enter another world, one pulsing with movement, sound, and color. Fish dart like sparks of light, corals sway gently in the current, and sunlight filters down like golden rain through turquoise water. It feels eternal, unchanging, alive. But beneath this breathtaking beauty, the reef is quietly dying. Since 1998, the Great Barrier Reef has suffered 6 mass bleaching events, each triggered by rising ocean temperatures. When water becomes too warm, corals expel the microscopic algae, called zooxanthellae, that live inside their tissues. These algae are what give corals their color, and, more importantly, their energy. Without them, the coral turns ghostly white and begins to starve. Bleaching doesn't always mean death, but it is a sign of deep distress. If temperatures stay high for too long, the corals die, leaving behind a lifeless skeleton. Once that happens, entire marine ecosystems collapse. Fish lose their homes, food chains break down, and biodiversity plummets. The Great Barrier Reef has already lost over half of its coral cover in just the past 30 years. In some regions, the once vibrant coral cities now resemble underwater graveyards, pale, silent, and still. Marine biologists describe the experience of diving among them as haunting, like visiting the ruins of a once great civilization. The causes are clear. Climate change is warming the oceans faster than the corals can adapt. Runoff from agriculture, heavy with fertilizers and pesticides, flows into the reef's waters, feeding algal blooms that block sunlight and suffocate marine life. Industrial activities, coastal development, and overfishing all add pressure to an already fragile system. And yet, on the surface, everything looks perfect. Tourists continue to flock to the reef, captivated by the colorful stretches that remain. They swim above thriving sections, unaware that just a few kilometers away, the coral is fading into white. But hope is not lost. Around the world, scientists and conservationists are racing against time. Coral nurseries are growing resilient species. Marine protected zones are expanding, and carbon reduction targets are slowly being enforced. Indigenous custodians of the sea, the traditional owners, are working alongside researchers to restore balance, combining ancient wisdom with modern science. The Great Barrier Reef is not just an Australian treasure, it is a living record of Earth's history, and a warning for its future. If it perishes, the loss will echo across the entire planet. But if it survives, it will stand as proof that human action, guided by knowledge, respect, and urgency, can still protect the wonders we are in danger of losing. In the heart of Australia's wilderness, nature once existed in delicate balance. Isolated for millions of years, the continent became a cradle of evolution, home to creatures found nowhere else on Earth. The kangaroo, the platypus, the koala, all products of this evolutionary solitude. Australia's ecosystems developed with no large land predators, no hoofed animals trampling the soil, and no foreign plants choking the land. But that isolation was shattered with the arrival of humans, and later, colonization. European settlers brought with them their own animals, crops, and customs, unknowingly unleashing an ecological transformation that still unfolds today. The story begins in the 1800s, when rabbits were introduced for sport. Within decades, they multiplied into hundreds of millions, devouring vegetation, eroding the soil, and stripping landscapes bare. Efforts to control them from fencing to viruses have slowed, but not stopped their spread. They remain one of the greatest ecological disasters in Australian history. Then came the foxes, brought for hunting, and the cats, brought as pets. Both soon escaped into the wild. Feral cats now prowl across nearly every corner of the continent, stealthy, efficient hunters that kill billions of native animals each year. Small mammals, reptiles, and birds, many found nowhere else on Earth, are being wiped out silently, night after night. Foxes, equally destructive, prey on ground-nesting birds and marsupials, pushing already endangered species closer to extinction. And the list goes on. The cane toad, introduced in 1935 to control sugarcane pests, has become one of the most notorious invaders of all. Poisonous to nearly every native predator, it spread relentlessly across northern Australia, leaving a trail of ecological devastation. Goannas, snakes, and quolls, creatures that once ruled their habitats, die after a single bite. Even freshwater ecosystems are collapsing under their toxic presence. Invasive plants have done their part too. The prickly pear cactus once consumed vast tracts of farmland, growing into impenetrable thickets until biological controls finally curbed its spread. Other species, like lantana and bufflegrass, continue to smother native vegetation, altering soil chemistry and fueling bushfires. Each species tells a story of unintended consequences of human intervention gone wrong. What began as small acts, a rabbit for hunting, a toad for pest control, a plant for shade, spiraled into a nationwide ecological crisis. But what makes this challenge even more invisible is that most tourists never see it. To the untrained eye, the Australian bush looks wild and alive, birds calling, grass waving in the wind. Yet, ecologists know that many of these ecosystems are living imitations, dominated not by native species, but by invaders. The silence of vanished species is a silence few notice, but it echoes across the continent. Today, scientists and conservationists are fighting back. Predator-free sanctuaries are being established to protect endangered animals. Genetic technologies are being explored to control invasive populations. Indigenous rangers are combining traditional ecological knowledge with modern techniques to restore balance to the land. The struggle is far from over, but it's a reminder that nature's greatest threats are not always loud or visible. Sometimes, they come quietly, on for pause, or hidden within a seed. And by the time we notice, the balance has already shifted. In a continent surrounded by oceans, it's easy to forget that Australia is, in fact, the driest inhabited continent on Earth. Here, water is more precious than gold, a lifeline that dictates where people can live, where crops can grow, and how ecosystems survive. From the shimmering rivers of the north to the arid plains of the interior, water shapes every story. Yet that story is changing fast. Droughts that once came once in a generation now strike with alarming frequency. The rains that used to arrive predictably with the seasons are no longer reliable. In some places, they don't come at all. The land cracks beneath a scorching sun. Riverbeds turn to dust. Cattle collapse in empty fields. Towns run dry, forced to truck in water just to survive. Farmers who have worked the same soil for generations now watch their livelihoods wither away, caught in a cycle of despair that repeats year after year. At the heart of this crisis lies the Murray-Darling Basin, the great artery of southeastern Australia. It supports over 2 million people and produces nearly 40% of the nation's food. But the basin's rivers, once strong and wide, are shrinking. Over-extraction for agriculture, combined with reduced rainfall, has drained wetlands and left ecosystems gasping. Entire fish populations have been lost in mass die-offs caused by low oxygen levels and toxic algae blooms. The wetlands that once provided sanctuary to migratory birds now lie barren, and the delicate balance between river, soil, and life is crumbling. Australia's water crisis isn't just about scarcity, it's about mismanagement. For decades, irrigation, mining, and urban expansion have taken more than the land can give back. Groundwater reserves that took millennia to fill are being depleted in decades. And as climate change intensifies, evaporation rates soar, reducing dams and reservoirs to mere puddles under relentless heat. The consequences ripple far beyond the Outback. When the land dries, bushfires spread faster. Crops fail, prices rise, and rural communities empty as families move toward the cities. Even major urban centers face growing pressure to secure sustainable water supplies. Desalination plants, once seen as last resort measures, now run continuously to meet demand. Yet, even in the face of such scarcity, there is resilience. Across the country, scientists, farmers, and indigenous custodians are finding new ways to adapt. Rainwater harvesting systems, water recycling, and sustainable irrigation technologies are reshaping how Australians think about this finite resource. Traditional ecological knowledge practiced by Aboriginal peoples for tens of thousands of years emphasizes respect for water as a living entity, not merely a commodity. Because here, in this land of extremes, water has always been sacred. It is the pulse of the continent, the quiet rhythm that sustains every creature, every tree, every human being. And as that rhythm falters, Australia stands at a crossroads, to either learn to live within its limits, or to watch the land it depends on slowly dry away. Yet, even in the face of fire, drought, and loss, hope endures. Because across Australia, from remote deserts to coastal reefs, people are fighting back. Scientists, rangers, farmers, and indigenous communities are working together to heal the wounds of a land pushed to its limits. In Queensland, divers tend to underwater nurseries, growing young corals by hand, carefully nurturing them until they're strong enough to be planted back into the reef. Each fragment represents a promise that color will one day return to the Great Barrier Reef's fading gardens. In New South Wales and Victoria, conservationists have built vast wildlife sanctuaries protected by predator-proof fences, where endangered marsupials, like the bilby and the bandicoot, are thriving once more. And across the Northern Territory, Indigenous rangers are bringing back the ancient practice of cultural burning, using controlled low-intensity fires to clear underbrush and prevent catastrophic wildfires. It's a practice rooted in tens of thousands of years of ecological wisdom, and modern science now confirms what Indigenous knowledge has always known: that harmony, not control, is the key to balance. Technology is also stepping in to lend a hand. Satellite monitoring tracks deforestation and habitat changes in real time. Drones deliver tree seeds over burned landscapes, helping forests regrow faster. Marine robots patrol reefs, collecting data and removing invasive species. And citizen scientists, ordinary Australians, are contributing their observations through apps and community projects, turning collective awareness into measurable action. Change is happening not just in science, but in mindset. Farmers are adopting regenerative agriculture, working with nature rather than against it, restoring soil health and conserving water. Urban planners are reimagining green cities, integrating native vegetation into streets, rooftops, and public spaces. Schools are teaching the next generation that caring for the environment is not a choice, it's a shared responsibility. And, perhaps most importantly, Australia's indigenous peoples, the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, are being increasingly recognized as vital stewards of the land. Their holistic understanding of country, the belief that land, water, people, and spirit are all interconnected, is guiding new conservation policies and reshaping how Australians think about sustainability. Yes, the challenges are immense. But so too is the resilience of this land and its people. The fires may burn, the coral may fade, and the rivers may run low, yet each season brings renewal. Every seed that sprouts through the ash, every hatchling that emerges on a restored beach, every drop of rain that falls on parched soil, all remind us that life, when protected and respected, will always find a way. Australia is a land of astonishing beauty, but also astonishing fragility. From its burning forests to its fading coral cities, from native species fighting for survival to rivers struggling to flow, this continent tells a story that is both heartbreaking and inspiring. A story of loss, yes, but also of resilience, courage, and hope. Because every ecosystem, every creature, every river and reef is part of a larger truth, that Australia's natural world is not guaranteed. It survives only as long as we fight to protect it. And that begins with awareness, with seeing beyond the postcard landscapes and acknowledging the living, breathing challenges beneath them. The future of Australia's environment will be shaped not by governments or scientists alone, but by all of us, by every choice we make, every voice we raise, and every effort, no matter how small, to care for the world we depend on. So, as we leave this journey behind, let one message remain. The beauty of Australia is real, but so is its fragility. And what we choose to do today will decide what survives tomorrow. If this film moved you, share it, speak about it, and stand with those protecting the wild heart of this extraordinary continent. Because the story of Australia's ecosystems is still being written, and together, we can make sure it's a story of survival,